right, the mic is activated.
Oh,
Not that, it just did. It just did. So it picked me up saying, okay, guys, the mic is activated. That's all. All right, let's get rolling here. Okay. Hey, guys, welcome back. As usual, this is the class that I'm streaming here. This is generally this class. As you can see up here, we've got a list of things that we're going to kind of work through today. But as often as I can, if there's something going on related to current events, and I can kind of make you aware of it, then I usually like to start off class that way. But today we started off a little bit differently. By the way, if everyone can say hi to Jada, she is at home with a fever, but she is watching the live stream. So hi, Jada.
I miss you. Glad I didn't have to drive you home today.
And so Jada's she's going to be working on what we're going to be working on today. She's going to be working on it from home. That's kind of the wonderful part of the modern technology that we can do this now. This is why. That's part of the reason why I keep thinking, these days where we have closings, I wish that we would consider e-learning days, because we could, my dad teaches in Master Grant, and they closed yesterday. They had e-learning days. I don't make it up. And I know that you all on a snow day would totally just jump on your Chromebooks and be excited to go in Google Classroom and figure out what we're doing. But if you knew that you didn't have to make things up, and you could hold on to your flex days and things like that, then I'd like to think that most students might actually get on for even a half an hour and do something. So from what I understand, there's some discussions going about that. I'm hoping that they'll be. But anyway, I said about current events. Right now, actually, as I'm speaking, the U.S. Senate is, even though the government is shut down, Congress is doing some work. And, I don't know to what level you guys have followed stuff concerning the Trump administration. But one of the things that is currently going on is that the president's attorney general, a guy named Jeff Sessions, resigned. That's a nice way of saying it. The president basically said, "You are going to resign." So I don't know that we can say that it was by choice, but he did resign. So we've got this opening here for attorney general, and President Trump nominated a guy named William Barr to take that spot. You may be sitting out there thinking, who cares about the Attorney General? I mean, the Attorney General is the top lawyer in the country, represents and heads up the Department of Justice. So really all matters of national law and how they're implemented fall under that. So, I mean, that's kind of a big deal. William Barr, I thought, was a pretty solid choice. He's worked, he's been an Attorney General before for the first President Bush. So he's definitely got some experience there. The reason I mention this, beyond just saying, okay, we've got this really important job that's getting filled right now, is that one of the big topics that is coming up, within this confirmation hearing, and I just, I was kind of watching bits and pieces of it, and I saw a senator that actually just bold-faced asked him, if we confirm you to be the next Attorney General, you have to be willing to tell the president no. I thought that was interesting. That's kind of a different tactic. It's not, we're not really asking questions about, how would you do the job? What would you do if you got the job? It's Congress saying, look, we give you this, we confirm you. We expect you to do this. That's different, and so it's an interesting thing to follow if you are doing your current events. I know that some of you are. They're not due until the 25th, but hopefully you guys are thinking about that. This is something that I think is kind of interesting to follow, because what happens if he says, no, he's the president, I'm going to do what he says. Then Congress and Senate may say, well, then you don't get the job. That could make for an interesting dynamic. The next 2 years are going to be a really interesting dynamic between Congress and the president. Yeah.
Can anyone else nominate?
Only the president can nominate. But then there's this term with government, checks and balances. All right, so that's a check that Congress has on the power of the president. The president can nominate you, whether you're a judge for the Supreme Court or you're Attorney General or you're Secretary of State, but you don't just get the job. You have to go through the Senate and get confirmed. And they can ask you whatever they want to ask you. So exactly, bro.
If she doesn't get confirmed, then they'll say, okay, but you need to give us details.
Yep. And so, then it becomes, here's who we might want to see you nominate, because, we aren't going to confirm this person, but we would confirm this person. And so the problem with that is that Congress overstepping its bounds? Is that Congress having way too much power? And I think the reason that it's set up this way is that the founders wanted Congress, especially the Senate. It's really just the Senate that is doing this. They wanted them to be able to look at this person's credentials and say, yeah, you're qualified to do this job. And so there are some that have started to wonder if it's become more of a, are you qualified, and more of a, do we like you? They're two very different questions. So I'm interested to see how this plays out, especially since this guy is not just some guy. He's somebody.
Can I say something? Lydia just texted me and said, "Boy, Klein, I'm watching."
Hi, Lydia. Hi, Lydia. Yeah, you missed some fun stories about Cameron earlier. I'll let Aubrey fill you in.
She already knows.
Oh, okay. But like I said, this guy's not just some random guy. This was 2 years ago, so you guys probably don't remember it. But I remember when President Trump nominated Betsy DeVos to head the education department. Teachers just all around the country just went crazy because this woman was completely unqualified to hold that job. I watched her confirmation hearing. At one point, she talked about teachers need to be armed because there's possible grizzly bear attacks. I don't even know what to do with that. Whatever. Yeah. I mean, she's like, she was like, they asked her about arming teachers, and she said something to the effect of like, well, I could see a teacher in Wyoming needing to have a handgun because of grizzly bear.
Those are all
Oh, there's grizzly bears, in Wyoming, but I don't know what to do with that. So, but I say that, I just want to be clear. I say that because William Barr is not Betsy DeVos. William Barr is, he's been a lawyer for a long time. He's been Attorney General. So this is where I think, it's going to be an interesting test with the Senate. So back to what we're doing today. The last couple of days, last week, yesterday was sort of an exception. But the last week was all about attitudes, Americans developing attitudes, and how they feel about politics. I want to make sure that we kind of bring that focused in here this week on actual government, because I'm hoping that some of you, all of you, have thought of, have even done your interviews. How many of you have done your interview? At least you've done your interview. Okay, if your hand's not up, this is due tomorrow. Okay, so tonight would be a good time to get that done. But I don't know. I'm kind of interested to see how your results play. All right, you may have had all sorts of interesting answers. People that have really good attitudes about government, some that have bad attitudes. I don't know, but they could just run a gamut here. I want to make sure this week that we kind of focus in on the work of American government and how this plays out, especially voters. That's basically your one job, right? Americans have one job. If they don't do anything else when it comes to American government, show up and vote. Okay? And when you go in to that voting booth and you've got that ballot in front of you, there are undoubtedly things that are going to help you to decide which name do I want to vote for. And so that's what we're going to look at this week, is I want to focus on 3 items that I think play a huge role, for better or for worse, in helping voters to make decisions. All right, we're going to look at political parties. When I talk to people, they have a really sour attitude about government. I feel like it always comes back to, well, those Democrats and those Republicans. I heard it this morning on the news. The news was interviewing people about the shutdown and how they feel about it. Of course, people are, hey, shutdown. People were really ticked off about it, and I heard time and time again, people were being interviewed. They said, these Democrats and these Republicans, pretty low opinion of both political parties. Okay? Yet, yet they're still around, and they're still incredibly powerful. So I want to talk about political parties, and that's kind of what we'll hit on today. End of the week, Thursday, Friday, we're going to focus in on interest groups. So these are groups like the NRA. These are groups like the ACLU, all sorts of different groups. And if you don't think that they play a role in influencing decisions and votes, you're nuts. And then early on next week, I want to focus in on what may have become the most influential thing on voters, and that is the media. We got into that last week. Those of you that have done your interviews, has the media come up with them? It has? Okay. That it has been an influence? Yeah. Whether it's social media, or I'm still a believer that television media absolutely is still playing a role. So we're going to take, it's one of my favorite days of government. Excuse me. We're going to take some time and we're going to watch some of television advertising. And I've got some doozies. Some that are really strong, some that are just, they make you want to cry. One of the ads, features castration. And you wouldn't think that would be something that would have an impact on voters. But, it certainly did. It's certainly something that sticks in people's minds. So those are the three big things that we're going to be looking at. I do want to, just for another reminder, don't forget that interview assignment, that's going to be due tomorrow. All right, make sure that you're getting that done. It's really not, don't overthink it. It's not, don't make it more difficult than it is. If you have any questions on how that needs to be done, please talk to me today, okay, whether through email or just after class, so we can get that straightened out. All right. With that said, political parties, let's talk about that. How many of you think that you can absolutely identify, if I were to ask you, give me the name of one political party? How many of you feel like you can absolutely do that right now? Raise your hand. You can give me the name of one political party. Right? How many of you feel like you could definitely give me the name of two political parties in the United States? Do it right now. Right now. How many of you think you could absolutely give me the name of three political parties? Not as many names. How many of you think you can give me four? All right, then the hands go down. So we got up to three. So, Brittany, give me one. Democratic one. Tristan, give me a second. Right? We know the Democrats, we know the Republicans. Now, Hunter, you're one of those hands up. Can you give me a third? Now that was a political party. Now they're not around anymore, but I'm going to give you bonus points for identifying a historic political party. So another political party that exists right now. Independent's technically not a party, right? Because just by definition, you're saying I'm independent from a political party. Now, there's a huge number of voters who are independent, but as far as a political party around,
I heard there's a party.
Bingo, yeah. The crazy thing though is, guys, is that most Americans are going to be like you guys. They're going to be able to say Democrat. They're going to be able to say Republican. But beyond that, maybe we'll have some that could identify the green. There's a party out there called the Libertarian Party that is sort of big. But, you get much beyond that. You're not going to be able to name them. Reality, there are hundreds and hundreds of political parties. They're pretty small. People haven't heard of them unless those people are in it. So the question is, why haven't we heard of those other parties? And I think our other question is, and if we are so frustrated at those darn Democrats and Republicans, then why don't we change things up? Why don't we do something different? So it's to that I want to start off. We're going to watch, and it's a real quick, it's like a 3-minute clip that I think is going to help to give you some answers to that question. Why, if we're so unhappy, do we keep this two-party Democrat-Republican type of system? Right? So if you would, turn your attention up here. It's real quick. I love this video because I think that they do a really nice job of giving you some examples. And if that's not enough, it features a flamingo down in beer. So, You know, that if nothing else is worth watching, right? A drunk flamingo.
Here we have America's two-party system. Two parties trading control of government back and forth again and again and again. Why on earth did the founding fathers design it this way? Well, they didn't. The ultimate domination of one faction over another, sharpened by the spirit of revenge, is itself a frightful despotism. Never.
Okay, I'm going to stop it on creepy George Washington and just point out, some of you probably know this. I mentioned it in U.S. history last year as well. George Washington warned us, said, watch out for these political parties. The only president that we've ever had that didn't really have any political party affiliation, all right, this was his concern, and you've got this quote up here, that what political parties are going to do is they're going to fractionalize this country. They're going to break this country into parts when we need to be unified. All right, now, he was alive to see those first two political parties form. But I think that if George Washington were to be here today, I believe his zombified corpse would say, told you so. Because we exist in a country that has been pulled apart, some would say in big way, by political parties.
Nevertheless, almost as soon as there were elections in the U.S., two dueling parties appeared. Whether intentional or not, the split factions are a byproduct of the electoral process laid out in our Constitution. You see, in American elections, we vote for a single candidate. And if that candidate gets a plurality, not necessarily a majority, he or she wins. A majority is when a candidate has more than half the votes. A plurality is when one candidate receives more votes than any other candidate. So a candidate doesn't need a majority of the votes, they just need more votes than any other candidate, or a plurality. This leads to a two-party system as explained by a principle known as Duverger's law, which states that elections ruled by plurality within winner-takes-all districts tend to favor a two-party system. To explain, think of birds. Now, think of birds who are taking a bird vote to determine which bird will be in charge of all the birds. There are all kinds of birds, of course, but for the sake of our discussion, let's say 40% believe that cardinals should be in charge. Another 40% of them think that blue jays should be in charge. But what if you're a third group, say robins? Robins hate blue jays because blue jays are known to steal robin eggs and eat them. Get my dirty wings off my head! With only 10% of the vote, this third party, the Robins, isn't going to win this election. So a vote for Robins could be viewed as throwing your vote away. But as a Robin, you will do anything to keep those filthy blue-winged rats out of office. So you vote for Cardinals as the next best thing. In real life, this happens all the time. Third parties, like the Robins, show up on the political scene only to be absorbed by one of the larger parties. You're a flamingo. Well, as a ground-dwelling bird, your interests are so marginalized, you'll probably just stay at home, disillusioned and politically detached. Oh, poor little guy. So, we're left with two major parties, because sometimes it's less about who you want in office and more about who you don't want in office. And one easy way to get more votes is by saying negative things about the opposition. Nature can be so cruel. I told you so. Then again, some would argue that America's two-party system is partially to thank for our over 200 years of relative political stability. In the end, the two-party system slows down change by cutting down on the diversity of candidates and opinions. The only way for outsiders to really make a difference is to push their views into the platform of the party that they are most closely aligned with, shape the future of our nation, even if they think the two-party system is for the birds. Sorry.
All right, now, it did kind of go fast, but I like the bird analogy. I think it does a nice job of explaining why, despite the fact that we seem to be so unhappy with the choices that we have and the fact that we only have two parties, why we haven't done anything different. I mean, we've had Whigs, and we've had Federalists, and we've had Democratic Republicans. We've had a lot of different parties, but we've always had a two-party system. And the answer, I think, more than anything that comes out of this is that Americans like easy. You know, it's much easier to have choice A, choice B. You add anything beyond that, it starts to become a bit more difficult to choose. I think more than that, what we also really like is we want somebody who's going to get elected that has a majority. You know, if you get elected and you only had 20% of the vote, that doesn't make you seem particularly appetizing, like you've got any sort of, you know, pull or power that you can draw on, you know, any kind of support to back you up. We like people that come in with a 55%. That's what they want. All right, so we may not love the parties involved, but we seem to really like this two-party system. And one of the big things that came up in the video that I would just mention here is, you know, it doesn't mean that you can't have a third party. The Green Party can exist. The Libertarian Party can exist. Right? The American, you know, Lumberjack Party can exist. But if they want to have any legitimate chance of getting their concern or their interest to be heard, they're going to have to get the attention of one of those big political parties and make them nervous. This happens all the time. The Green Party makes the Democratic Party very, very nervous. And that is one of the biggest reasons why the Democratic Party tends to be a bit more environmental friendly. Why? Because they're trying to bring those Green Party folk over and see if they'll vote for Democrats. That's kind of how this system works. So just to give us a little bit more background and knowledge about how political parties work and the current major parties that we have right now, we're going to work on something, and we're going to be doing it in some small groups here. With a class this small, we're just going to have two groups. We're going to sort of go geographically based here. One side of the room and the other side. So I'm going to pull something up here to kind of show you how this is going to work. If you would do me a favor and just get to the website, don't do anything else, but just get to the website, and then I'll give you some instructions from there. All right. Give me just a minute here. I'm sorry. Here we go. All right, so this should be what you're looking at right now. And you'll notice that there's a link up there. It says Political Party Hyperdoc. Okay? So that's what we're going to be working on. Now, I don't want you to click on it. All right, I'll explain why in just a moment. Let me show you what this is going to look like. Okay? You guys are going to be working, like I said, in small groups. So once I give you exactly who your group is going to be, I need for only one person in the group to actually open this, make a copy of it, and then I'm going to have you share that with the other students that are in your group. That's why I don't want everybody opening it. I'm just going to need one person to open it. Right? Once you do, there we go. All right, so this is what you're going to have once you open it up and you make that copy. Next thing is go up to the blue share button, type in the names of everybody else in your group, and then you'll be ready to roll. All right, so you've got a part 1, part 2, part 3 here. I'm going to actually jump down to part 3 first, just to let you know that there's nothing that you have to do for part 3 on this document. I just want to be clear here. Part 3, and it says, if you actually read it, it says, part 3 is your weekly response. Weekly number 2. All right, it's linked onto the class webpage right now, and you'll notice that it is the exact same question that you've got down here. And what I'm basically asking for here is after our discussion that we've had here at the beginning of class, after the video clip, and then after what you work on here, I just want you to think about the overall value of political parties. George Washington said, watch out. These things aren't good. Do you agree or disagree with George Washington? Right? And it's okay, by the way, to disagree with George Washington. Because there are a lot of people that say having a political party is a very, very good thing. Part of that old adage that there's strength in numbers. Maybe that's true. Right? So I'm just kind of curious, after everything that we look at in the next couple of days, what do you think? What's your view on it? But here's what I want you to do. In part one, and that's what I would focus on today. If you don't get to part two today, that's okay. I'm actually going to give you some time tomorrow even to get this finished up. You don't have to get in a big hurry. But in part one, I want you to take your small group and I want you to break that small group up even further so that some of you, hopefully at least two of you, will take some time to focus in on the Republican Party. Another two of you, the Democratic Party, and so on. All right, if you click on those links are going to take you to the platform of each of those parties. So those are the ideas that those parties are prioritizing. We, the Democratic Party, stand for this. We want laws that will do this. Right? And each of those groups are going to have a link that's going to take you to that information. So what I'm asking you to do, and your partner, because hopefully you'll have a partner, is to summarize what those are. All right, if you had to get this down to 4 bullets, 4 bullets that tell us what the priorities are, each of these parties, what would it be? What would those 4 bullets be? So that's part one. That's part one. Now, part two, like I said, I'll give you some time tomorrow to get that part done. So I don't really want this done as homework. I'd like for this to be done. Is once you've got that part one table filled out, get back together as a group and talk about it. Look at the information up here and translate it down here. I have given you 4 what I think are really big current issues. All right, we've got global warming. Now, whatever you feel about global warming and climate change, right, that's fine. There's no denying that it's a big topic being discussed. So, I've given you a statement about global warming. So, based off of what you've got up here, I want you to go each of these parties and tell me, do you think that this party would strongly support that statement? Strongly oppose it? How do you think the party would react to that statement? We've got healthcare up there, we've got taxes, we've got the U.S. military. And all 4 of those are pretty big issues that Americans are talking about right now. But I don't think you can do part 2 without having part 1 done. So that's why I said focus on part 1 now. Try to get as much of it done today as you can. If you don't get it done, which you probably aren't considering the time, come in tomorrow and you can work on it tomorrow. I don't have anything else planned for tomorrow but to get this done. But that's the work. Okay? So here's what I'd like to do. In the 3 minutes that it looks like that we've got left, I'd like for us to get our groups together, and I'd like for you to know which political party you are responsible for and who you are working with. Okay? So correct me if I'm wrong. We're missing Brayden, Lydia, and Jada. Audrey. I didn't see Audrey. She wasn't in here yesterday.
Oh, she wasn't in here because she had to leave her location.
Gotcha. Okay. So I will probably, since we have 4 people absent, I'll probably take 2 and put them in one group and 2 and put them in the other group. All right. And like I said, we'll just make this kind of easy. Okay, so let's have this crew and then Jada and then I'm gonna have Lydia and Brayden and you 2 are gonna come over here. Okay, so that's kind of how we'll do this. So Lydia, if you're listening, you are with Riley Blackford, Aubrey Adair, and then Jada, you are with Jaden McCorkle, Brittany Ross. All right. So I'd like for you to do two things. Number one, have one person in these groups share the document with the other people in the group. Do that now. And then if you could, real quick, decide who's going to do which political party. I'm reading that time, bro. We got more time. Yeah, we got like 8 minutes. Never mind. We got 8 minutes. We got plenty of time to get that done. Get your small group, get the document in front of you, share it with you, and then decide who's doing which political party. And then if that's where we stop, then that's fine. So you guys have who did I say? Bring in Jada. Audrey and Jada. So share with Audrey and Jada. And then who's doing it? Who's sharing it on this side? Who's responsible for sharing the document?
I'll do it.
Okay, so Daisy, also share it with Brayden Kane and Lydia Craig. Yes, thank you. Whatever. And if you want to put your names beside the parties that you're doing, that's fine. Just wait till you get that document in your email, open it up, and then you got to roll with it. Like I said, we'll come in tomorrow. We'll work on this some more. Don't worry about doing this as any sort of homework.